Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming in. I was saying earlier, if I were in class with you, I'd make you all come to the front, but I won't do that to you this morning. Just to give you a little background on me, yes, I am a professor today at Carthage College, but this is my encore career. I worked for Johnson Controls for 26 years in the, it will always be battery to me, but it was power solutions, and it was sold, Johnson Controls sold our unit, and it is now a standalone company called Clarius, which is also a big employer here in Wisconsin and globally. My roles at JCI, I started there in 1991 in customer service, and I say I had a zigzag up career where I went from customer service to project management to marketing services to product marketing to then I found out the thing that I was actually doing, hanging out with engineers and developing products for my customers, because I was in marketing, and then I also was sales director for a while. So I got very close to our customers and engineering, and we were developing products. And then I realized after a while that what I was doing was product management, and I was there at the beginning of product management. My last role there was global director of product and portfolio management. So I always tell my students there are no boring products. There are no boring products, just unimaginative marketers. I also like to show them the patents that I have and those types of things to say, hey, I'm a marketing person and I have this. You don't need to get into product management. You don't necessarily have to be a highly technical person, but you need to have the ability to understand it and translate it and be the expert of your customer in the organization. So I love product management, and I hope to share a little bit of that with you today. At Carthage, we've recently, just this last year, launched a master's program, certification, and also master's in product management. So that's one of the messages that we're trying to get out into the world at this point. And one of the reasons I'm here, because I'm the director of that program, as well as teaching in undergraduate courses. So let's get started. How many of you know anything about product management? One person? And that's not unusual. In fact, from a personal perspective, it was interesting with my family trying to explain what I did, because it's not something that everybody understands what the role is. In fact, I have two sisters. One was a flight attendant and the other was a court reporter. And so my parents were proud of all of us, but when they talked about my sisters, they could really relate to what they did. And, well, Lisa has a good job. It's something to do with batteries, you know. So I was basically known as the battery lady my whole life. And I know more about batteries than anybody wants to know. I've forgotten more about batteries than most people want to know. But I actually really do love the whole battery industry. I've traveled around the world because of it. I have friends all over the world because of it. I've been to NASCAR races and been in the winner's circle next to Jeff Gordon because of it. I know Bobby Labonte. I've hired Tim Allen as a spokesperson. I've done all of these great things. So there are no boring products. I just wanted to point that out. So product managers, we don't just build products, we build possibilities. So what I'm hoping to do today is give you just a flavor of some of the tools and the things that we use, the frameworks that we use to create and also manage existing businesses. So let's jump into this. as I said, it's a multifaceted role. It's what I love about product managers is they come from many different backgrounds. I know people in product management that came from engineering, of course, marketing, yes. They come from operations. They come from all different areas of the business. And they kind of sit in a hub type position and work with every area of the company. So it's multifaceted. You can describe us as part designers, part engineers, part marketers, part salespeople, and part legal advisor. We spend a lot of time with lawyers just to make sure that the things that we're doing are good for the company. So it is a multifaceted role, and to kind of illustrate that, I've taken a couple different articles, some of the things, the items that I teach in the program, teach to my students, and one that I want to talk about is McKinsey's 3 Horizons, which is a tool. How many people already know about McKinsey's 3 Horizons? It's been a tool that has been used in business for probably 20 or more years to help frame the portfolio and mix of projects that companies should be achieving or striving toward. So this particular article from the Harvard Business Review came out about a year ago, and Steve Blank, who is one of the authors that I follow, is the author of this, and because he wrote it, I was interested, and the title is saying that here's why it no longer applies. So let's just look through some of the highlights of that. So first, since you may not be familiar with the model actually says that for an ideal mixture of projects and products that you're developing in any company, you should have things that are enhancement to your current products, which is the 70%, the horizon. It's how are we developing our products so that they continue to excite our customers and really extend the life cycle. So about 70% of what you do should be in that category. Horizon 2 is a little adjacent to it. That might be services, which are products too, that are augmenting that first bucket. But there's less risk with those. They have a shorter time to market and can really grow your business, but they're growing your business based off what you do today. So that's about 20% of your portfolio. And then Horizon 3 should be about 10% of your portfolio, and those are breakthroughs. Those are things that are new to the world. They may be new to your company, but also new to the world. They're the things that are really going to change and push your company in a different direction or expand the direction where you're going. So this is what the model has always been. I used this in my practices kind of as a guideline, a frame to see, oh, we need to stretch a little bit more. We have very little that's in the Horizon 3 at this point, kind of guide what we were doing. So it's not saying that these are hard rules, but these are things you need to think about to make sure that you're growing and you're pushing your capabilities and really working with your customers. So that's what the model is like. Remember, this opinion from Steve Blank was that he didn't think that this applies any longer in this century. So why does he say that? Essentially, the reason he said that is because new disruptors seem to be disrupting quickly. That he said, in his opinion, these 3 horizons were time bound, that large companies would think of it in terms of Horizon 1 is something I can do quickly, Horizon 2 takes a little longer, and Horizon 3 are long term. And he thinks that that's the mistake that incumbents make in any industry. That if you think about it, disruptors often come out of left field. They're people that are not known in your industry. And part of that reason is, as incumbents, we're invested in keeping the status quo going. That was his philosophy. So he warns against too much reliance on the McKinsey 3 horizons because of that. And he said the most important reason is that speed matters. Speed to market matters, and that's how big industries are getting disrupted. So as an example, these Horizon 3 disruption is happening, and new companies they work with speed. They basically deliver a product that looks more like a minimum viable product. Does everybody know what that means? Minimum viable product? Okay, that's a pretty common term. Essentially, this is a Tesla in here. I can tell you when I was working in batteries, we had some of the earliest Teslas in our garage. And I walked up to that Tesla and thought, oh, this is not ready for prime time. I mean, I could see the workmanship wasn't quite there. It was, none of our OE customers would have introduced it. It would not have been launched the way it was. I mean, I could see those things with my untrained, I am not an engineer, but I could see the issues. But disruptors, like Tesla was at that point, disruptors will bring it out before it's ready for prime time. And that's Steve Blank's point in this, is they'll push it out, minimum viable product, and then they'll make changes, and then they become competitors. So that's why he was saying if you are too strongly connected to this idea of these 3 horizons, you will be disrupted by others who are not. Okay? So, also in this article, he says, however, all is not lost. That incumbents can counter this rapid disruption. And he said there are 4 possible strategies. The first is incentivize external resources. So we did see a lot of that and did do a lot of that in a large company. It's you look for smaller companies, people that are innovating and doing sort of proof of concept outside of our big ongoing business. So that's the first one. The second one is acquiring these external innovators. A lot of companies did that. In this 21st century, it's harder and harder to do that. So that may not be the best strategy at this point. And then the third, copy the innovators, be fast followers. We did that quite a bit as well. And that's not a bad strategy. If you see that a proof of concept is working over somewhere else, yes, be a fast follower. And then the fourth, which I like the best, is to just innovate better than the disruptors. So do it under one roof. We have to, in this century, we have to be both. We have to be innovators, and we have to be business managers as well. And that's one of the things I love about product management, is you get to do it all. So in conclusion with just this opening of that and that article is that the Three Horizons model is still useful if we use it as a prioritization type tool, which is kind of the way I would use it anyway, rather than thinking of it as being time-bound. These things can be happening simultaneously. And that, I think, is the lesson of Steve Blank's article. So speed is important. Speed to market, cycle speed for development is important. And that's one of the things that we need to work at as incumbents in whatever our industry is, to make sure that we're not being disrupted. So, which leads me to this book, The Invincible Company. Has anybody heard of this book? Yes, one. Okay, great. It's the latest in a series that started with business model generation and the value proposition. I forget what the title is exactly, value proposition and experiments, and now the Invincible Company. And the theme of the Invincible Company is that you can cultivate, explore, and exploit products and technologies all under one roof. And to be an invincible company means that you will exist for the long term. You will do these things all simultaneously under one roof. So, invincible companies, we design, manage, and maintain a strong explore and exploit culture. So what does that mean? Explore and exploit. I'll dig into that a little more. Also, this is key. They cherish operational excellence. I love process. I am a process person. I love defining process and streamlining processes and so on. So we love process. We also want to constantly be improving the process while managing the present. They know, okay, so invincible companies know that you cannot cost cut yourself into the future. Cost cutting, yes. A lot of companies try to do that. Pull out cost, pull out cost, pull out cost. Not a bad thing if you're becoming more efficient, but it can't be the only thing. It can't be your only strategy toward excellence, because it's like I tell my students, if price is your greatest feature, low price, you better be the biggest, because it's just a race to the bottom. Someone will undercut you. So it's really better to increase your value proposition rather than try to cut all your cost. So the invincible companies recognize that. They also embrace risk and experimentation, fail fast. So risk is the thing that can really help you get there. So the big lesson of this invincible company is that you don't rest on your laurels. You work on tomorrow, today. So you work on today's business, the thing that got you here, and continue to work on tomorrow and look for new methods. So out of this book, this is one of the things I love the most, is this visual. Okay, so this shows you the explore, exploit continuum. Exploring is messy. It's messy. It's not linear. There are iterations. There's pivots. It's messy. Okay, exploit is managing your business, becoming more efficient, doing incremental changes, that Horizon 1 stuff that I was just talking about. But we need to do this under one roof. Now, we used to talk about this in in my previous roles, some people are more, let's say, some people are stronger at the explore side of the continuum, and some people are better at managing, and we need both. So when I say that we need to do it under one roof, it doesn't exactly mean that one person has to at one time be doing all these. We always work in teams. Not everybody wants to do both, but on my team of product managers, I had people who were good at both of these things, or maybe one more than the other. And but I always try to encourage people to have experience in both sides of the business, because the more you do each, the better you become overall. And I'm the type of person that truth be told, I'm the type of person who likes to be over here because I love the excitement of new and creating things from nothing and that type of thing. But I also can manage and can do the exploit section. So I think people find where they're most comfortable, but it's good to have experience on both ends. And depending on the company, smaller companies, you do it all, right? One of the things about exploring, one of my great loves is market research. And that's one of the things I teach in undergrad as well. And there are different types of research that I enjoy the most. One of the things that we do as product managers is our goal is to solve problems, to connect customers who have a real problem with a solution, and design that solution that best fits their needs. So that's what we do as product managers. That's our top responsibility, is to build the right products for our customers, and therefore it takes a wide variety of skills. So we need to be good communicators, we need to be strategic thinkers, we solve problems, and we lead teams. But a lot of people, okay, so a couple of very famous quotes. Henry Ford. I was in the automotive industry, so I love things that reference automotive. Henry Ford, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. You've all heard that one, okay? You probably have also heard this one, Steve Jobs was kind of famous for saying it's really hard to design products by focus groups. A lot of times people don't know what they want until you show it to them. So both of these usually get interpreted as Steve Jobs didn't believe in doing market research, or Henry Ford, he didn't believe that market research mattered either, because people don't know what they want. Steve Jobs said, they don't know what they want. I know what they want. I know it better than them. Really what they were saying is that customers can only envision what they know. They can only envision what is before them and what they can see from their existing experiences. And in that respect, they were mostly right. But where I disagree with those statements, and what I think they were really saying, is that it's not their job to design the solution. Okay, let that soak in for a minute. It is not the job of the customer to tell you what the solution is. That is our job, to understand the customer, to even see what they don't even think is an issue or a problem, and find a solution for them, design the solution to solve that problem. There are two types of problems. There are overt problems where you can say, yes, this is the problem I'm having, and describe it and talk about it, and you know that this is a problem. And then there are problems that you've just accepted. You just think this is the way it is. And sometimes the greatest innovation comes from solving those problems that people have just accepted. So I always tell my students about, when I started in business and we had to wear suits and skirts and, things, and then I'd go into a call at a customer's and have to crawl under the desk, plugging in everything, and that was just normal. We just thought that was normal. Today, you can go into a conference room and you've got a pop-up thing and hook up all your stuff. That's because somebody saw that problem and said, there's got to be a better way to deal with this. So we are trained as product managers. We're trained to see what other people don't. We're trained to ask why. I call that the 5 whys. 5 whys is it takes 5 levels of peeling back the onion before you really realize what the problem is. So looking at a problem, looking at what people are doing is a research technique called ethnography that I just love. Sorry about that. Oops. So ethnography is one of the most important qualitative research methods that we use in product management. And essentially, it's qualitative because it's exploratory. You don't know what you're going to find. It is seeing what other people don't see, noticing and questioning and asking why, and then identifying. It's actually one of our jobs, I guess it's problem finding. Is one of the ways to look at it. Instead of asking people what the problem is, I'm looking for problems that we can solve. And companies that can do that are the ones who come through, they make breakthroughs, they have breakthrough products. So it's going, the other thing, it really is based in anthropology. So it's going to where the action is. If any of you are in manufacturing, you've probably talked about Gemba walks, Gemba, going to where the action is. Gemba is a word from, it's a Japanese word about where the action is. So ethnography is very much like doing a Gemba walk, getting out there, seeing what's happening. So this is one of the things we do as product managers to truly understand our customers and their needs. And by the way, these customers may be the end user, they may be a distributor, they may be the people in the plant. It's every step along the way in the value chain. We want to see how people are interacting with our product and where we can come up with innovations that improve that situation. So it can be used to improve the existing processes in the plant, become more efficient, and also to change the end product. Could be at the store shelf, it could be as people install it. There are many places where innovation can happen. And I think I mentioned that I have patents. A lot of my patents are things that helped in the installation process. I spent a lot of times in garages watching people work on cars. I spent a lot of time with people in the field, hanging out with Jeep owners or off-roader or those type of people to learn what their issues were. So being out of your office, being with the people that are using and touching your product along the way is all part of what we do when we do ethnography. So an example of ethnography, the Swiffer mop, okay? So we've all done this before, mopped a floor with a bucket. P&G knew that consumers were unhappy with how the process of washing the floor. And what they were hearing from customers was, I don't like the fact that I'm pushing dirty water. As soon as I use it, put it back in, I'm pushing dirty water all over my floor. So they were thinking, we need to develop a new soap, a better soap. And that was kind of where they were going, and it wasn't a successful project. But then they hired a design thinking team, and that team basically went and observed people in their homes washing floors. And they realized that a few things were happening. If you've washed a floor with a mop and a bucket, it's a long process. Then you finish and your kid comes in and drops something, or somebody drops something on the floor. You don't get the mop and the bucket out again. It's too much work. So what do? You get out the paper towel, you clean it up with the paper towel, you do a little movement with your foot, maybe spray some, and we've all done that, right? So you do that type of thing, aha, that opened up an opportunity for a new kind of mop. And that's where Swiffer was invented. So now we look at Swiffer. This is a $1 billion category based off of actually watching what people do and why they do it. So there's room for innovation in that way. You can create whole new markets by finding a different problem, finding the problem that other people see but don't. They walk past it, they see, but they don't think about how we could solve that. So that's one example. But back to the faster horses thing. Basically, I hope that sinks into you that ethnography is not about asking people what you should do, asking them to create the solution. Ethnography is about seeing what they're doing now, recognizing their frustrations, and developing a better solution. So in the case of the faster horses, it was the car. I also like this fun fact. If you do some research on the automobile when it was first introduced, it was actually considered the environmentally friendly alternative to horses, because horses left a lot of waste. Can you imagine horses all over the city in Milwaukee? Waste that went into the gutters, that then went into the water supply, and all of those things. So it was actually, the internal combustion engine was the environmentally friendly new alternative when the car was introduced. Fun fact. I always like things that reference the automotive industry. So when we embed ourselves into our customer's world and truly understand our customer wherever they are along the value chain, that's when we can come up with ideas to transform industries and change the world. So then they turn into products that customers can't imagine living without. As Steve Jobs said, he wanted to put what did he say? He wanted to put a crack in the universe, that type of thing. So, which he certainly did. So the lesson there is the greatest insights are not in your office. They're outside your office. So that's one of the things we do as product managers is we get out there. Get out, go to the Gemba, get out of the office. It can be very expensive. It can. When you think about it, it takes time, but it's not as out of reach as you might think. Even small businesses can do their own ethnography. And some of the things that you can do, first, shadow your customers. Get out of the office, go be with them, be in the environment where your products and your services are being used, and take your naive self there. Look at it as someone who doesn't know everything about it. Learn about it as a new customer, a new person to your industry would learn about it. Take notes about pain points. Look for hints like weird behavior. Like I said, crawling under the table, that's weird behavior. You know, you shouldn't be doing that. You know, look for duct tape. Look for, my dad's, one of his favorite words was always jerry-rig. Look for something that's jerry-rigged together. That is a clue that something's not right. And then what we do as product managers is we take what we see and then translate them, go back to the office, talk to the technical people, tell them what we're seeing, and together we come up with solutions. Okay, so that's ethnography. Now let's talk a little bit about the product life cycle. You hear a lot about that, and it is a great tool. It's a framework for us to understand where we are on the products, the roadmap of a particular product. Every product, every service, every person, everything has a life cycle. It has a beginning, middle, and end. The lesson, though, that we need to learn and understand is that it doesn't have to be linear. It doesn't have to be a strict bell curve. In my world with the lead-acid battery, that curve is going on for 100 years. It's going to be there for a lot longer, even in the future. So what we want to do is break away from the idea that it has to be short. How do we extend that? How do we extend the growth area of the product life cycle? And so that idea is, let's reposition our products with the features packages that it has to either push it from the introductory place to the growth, or pull it back from maturity to growth. So enhancements. Today, people expect all kinds of, a list of features with everything. And it's using those features we can manipulate those stages to get back to growth. And here are some ways that we can do that. We can use reverse positioning. Reverse positioning is where you look at the package that you're offering and you take away some of those features and maybe replace them with something new. So it's, yes, you're taking some cost out by reducing features, but you're adding something new that is going to help it grow again. So you take what's old and make it new again, and you can move back to the growth stage. Breakaway positioning is kind of like finding a blue ocean. It's looking at what we offer today and going past what everyone else is competing on and finding new ways to create new markets. So breakaway positioning is, again, making something old new again with new features. And then stealth positioning is kind of like that Tesla example, where you're taking technology that may not be accepted, but pushing it forward into growth by getting it out there earlier. Sony did this with robots. They weren't quite there to send out a personal robot, so they made it into a little toy, like a dog, little dog type thing. So it was a good way for them to take something that was virtually a prototype, but get it into a toy that could then be a learning mechanism for them. So they pushed a technology forward into more of the growth mode. So basically, it's looking at your products and looking at ways to reposition them to make them new again. And that's what this is illustrating here. Reverse positioning, breakaway positioning, and stealth positioning. Oh, and these do work really well with different types of industries. So reverse positioning is great for services. For instance, banking. If you have, all these services related to a particular kind of account, take out some of those and add something new, make it an app, that kind of thing. Services are easier to use the reverse positioning. Breakaway is more for packaged goods, and stealth positioning for technology. Okay, so talked a lot about different ways to reposition and how to think about your business. In today's world, I want to talk about constraints for a minute, because constraints are actually can push you to be more creative. I like this this quote. This is from Robert F. Kennedy in his Ripple of Hope speech. That was in 1966. And I just remember this my whole life, hearing this thought, may you live in interesting times. Well, we're living in interesting times. Then it also says in here that it's a Chinese curse. I don't know if that's true. I haven't found that, but basically it is a curse and a blessing to live in interesting times. But I tell my students, and I truly believe that this is the best time in the world of human existence to live. That there are so many opportunities available to us. But we are living through very interesting times now, and the constraints that we're living under could be the thing that help us find our next innovation. And that's one of the key characteristics of a product manager, is to be creative problem solvers. And constraints are the thing. If I tell you you can do anything, you have an unlimited budget, people go blank. I don't know what to do. If you give them some constraints, some rails that they have to live in, that's when it forces, there's a psychology to this, that it forces you to be more creative. How can I make this work within these constraints? So this idea that if you only have a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, we've all heard that. But the hammer can be so many other things if it needs to be. I asked my husband this question. He's a carpenter, and I said, what can you do with a hammer? And he says, well, you hammer with it. Well, no, if a hammer is all you have, what can you do? And he's like, well, you can use it as prop, you prop things up. I said, how long is a hammer? Oh, it's about 16 inches, he knows these things. Oh, well, sometimes you use it to pry, sometimes you use it as a weight, sometimes so if it's all you have, you figure out how to use it. You figure out how to solve problems within those constraints. I like this example. Anybody see the movie Apollo 13? If you haven't, great movie. And remember, I'm really aging myself, but the show MacGyver, you guys remember the show MacGyver? Essentially, work with what you got. What can you do with what you've got? So in Apollo 13, life and death situation. They had to create a filter to take out carbon dioxide, and they had to use what was available, plastic bags, cardboard, and duct tape, basically, whatever they had. That's what we do in product management. We have to think about what can we do with what we have and solve this problem. So this failure is not an option mindset is really key to that. And the world of constraints that we're living in, failure is not an option. Actually, challenges like this make us stronger. If it doesn't kill us, it makes us stronger, right? So this is also, from psychologists talk about how this makes us more resourceful and also makes us stronger and gives us the ability to be more creative. I also like to keep a playful mindset. When you're playful, when you're working with these constraints, thinking about it, it takes the fear component away. So rather than thinking this is a life or death situation, think in terms of gamification. How can we have fun while we're doing this and really challenge ourselves? So, limitations. I know it's really hard in today's world, but keeping a positive outlook and thinking about the limitations. Well, what could we do instead? That sometimes that's where the best innovations are born. Another good quote, my dad always quoted Winston Churchill to me, never let a good crisis go to waste. So some of the best innovations in the world happened in times of crisis. So today, we've got a lot of that around us, and I think if we keep a positive attitude and use these to our benefit, we might be able to do great things today. I'm gonna check, I'm not running out of time. Storytelling. This is another talent, something that I think all business people, but especially product managers should practice. I study story, the elements of story, because that's how people learn. Before we could ever write or read, we told stories, and we transferred ideas to each other through story. And it's really important when you're designing new products and also communicating the end product to your customer. A story is the most effective way to do it. So I've got a couple of examples of that, but I do want to emphasize the superpower of a great product manager is empathy. Again, that's about understanding your customers, seeing what others don't see, actually getting out into the world and bringing your naive self to it, learning as your customer would learn. So, great book, I highly recommend Build by Tony Fadell. If you don't know who Tony Fadell is, he worked for Apple and was one of the developers, like the main developer of the iPod. And one of the stories in his book is about the Nano, when they were developing the iPod Nano. And it was a problem because it was smaller and the battery life was actually going to be significantly less than the current version of the iPod, the larger version. So it was going to go from 15 hours to 12 hours. And battery life is a huge thing when you're dealing with these electronic devices. And nobody wanted to go to Steve Jobs and say, oh yeah, by the way, we're doing this Nano and it's going to have less battery life than our existing product. That would be a no-go in the meeting. So he said, instead, what we had to do is bring him stories. So we brought him customer stories. So customers like a commuter, Sarah, a persona they gave her. She only used the iPod when going back and forth to work. Or students like Tom, who only used it during, between classes and after games, that type of thing. So when they told these stories of the real usage patterns of real people and made them into personas, then it became clear that 12 hours of battery life is actually a week in their experience. So by delivering that idea in a story when they went to Steve, it was accepted. He was okay with that because we're giving them a week's worth of life versus less hours than the current. So storytelling is very powerful. Another one, also from the same book, Tony Fadell went on to found Nest, the thermostat company, and one of their later products was this security system. And he said to the young male single engineers, they always thought of this security device as something to protect my house when I wasn't there, okay? But Sophie, who was the product manager, she was actually spending time with customers, and she realized that this is not what our customers think. Especially families, especially women at home alone with their children at night, thought of it more as protecting us at home, while we're there. And one of the things, if you have ever had a security system, one of the things that is a huge problem with security systems is false alarms. Setting off your own alarm because you wanted to open the window, or movement, that kind of thing. And because she was able to put that into story form and explain that and help these engineers understand the customers, they actually developed the Nest Secure with a quick override button so that they would avoid these false alarms. So again, a good example of how to use story. And by the way, great book filled with these types of stories. So kind of leads me to the toolbox that we use as product managers. The toolbox we use is filled with all kinds of frameworks and things that we use to be able to see problems in different perspectives. I won't go through all of these, but I can make this all available to you guys if you would like it. But essentially, I've listed out some of the common tools that we use for problem solving, from idea generation, risk assessment, decision making. There are all of these frameworks that help us see problems in different perspectives. And it goes on to strategic planning, life cycle management, customer insights, and innovation exploration, and more and more. So I'm also giving you a list. This is a partial list. I have read all of these books cover to cover, plus many more, where we get these ideas, and I use many of these with my students, and I highly recommend all of them. So if you're curious about a career in product management, come visit us at the booth and I can talk to you about what we do at Carthage. I love product management. I think it is one of the roles within a company where you can really make a difference. I tell my students that marketing in general, we can change the world. We have the ability to change the world, and product management is one of those roles. So, and why is this important now? Manufacturing. I love manufacturing. Manufacturing is, it's noble, it's coming, I think it has always been kind of the heart and soul of the Midwest, and I think it will only continue to be so more in the future. And in our program, these are the skills that we teach. It's product management, project management, product marketing, and then overall leadership skills. So all of those come together, and these are the skills that you need to lead and be successful, I think, for the long haul. So that's a lot. I hope that you found something of interest in that. Are there any questions that I can take? We've got a few minutes for questions. Yes? Sure. So when I'm doing decision making, spreadsheets. So, and this is something you do, I teach a lot of analytics as well. But basically, to take the emotion out of decision making, what I like to do is create a decision spreadsheet with the criteria that I'm going to decide upon, which we give a weight to, you know, what are the priorities in there, and then have whether it's which products we want to pursue, which people we want to hire, whatever the criteria happens to be, and then rate each of them against each other and let the calculation kind of bubble up, and then you start the debate about that as well. But you see, it's a decision analysis kind of spreadsheet to try to use data to inform our decision making. Does that help a little bit? I can actually, if you want, I could send you some examples if we want to talk afterward. I'd be happy to do that. Anybody else? You mentioned that it's very broad. The reason I do that Venn diagram with all of the skills is that a lot of times people move back and forth between those roles over their career. Like I said at the beginning, my career path was a zigzag up, okay? I was on the customer side for a while, then, on the customer facing, and then I went to project management, and then I went to marketing, and then I went to sales, and then I went to product marketing, and then I went to product development. So it's like zigzag. I also like to describe it as a T-shaped career, very broad, and then go deep into areas. So I think all those skills as you move up in the organization will really serve you well. And sometimes you're focusing on different aspects of it rather than everything at once. Any other questions? So are you excited about the idea of product management now? Yes, I think it can really make a difference. If you aren't doing it in your company, I think it's something that, I was in the ground floor of doing this. Before we had a formal product management team, it was a push kind of world where you've got engineers in isolation looking at what can we do, and then push it out and then go sell it, right? And I think we became much more successful when we started with the customer. We became more customer focused, understanding what is really needed out there, and then work together as a team. The best teams are cross-functional, in my opinion. You know, you get everybody's bringing their strengths to the team, and you're collaborating and working together, and we came up with much more than any group could have done individually, much more creative and innovative solutions. So, and there are no boring products, right? In fact, the more boring it is, the more fun it becomes when you realize that it is exciting. So, anybody else? Any thoughts? Yes, sir.
So how is a new product initiated? Like, who starts that? How do you build it?
So a lot of times it starts with that ethnography approach, going out and seeing what's happening out in the world. And I'd actually like to bring a team when I go observe customers, or however, when I'd go on a team and I take engineers with me, they're not allowed to talk. Okay, they're not allowed to talk because the engineers will try to fix immediately, and they'll promise something that they don't even know if they can do. I mean, and some of my best friends are engineers, so I don't mean to criticize, but it's like you come and you observe, and let me do the questioning, let me do the talking, and we go out and we learn. So it starts with learning and problem finding. Like I was saying, so you want to go and find out what's out there, and you're exploring. You don't know what you're going to see. You don't know what you don't know. So it starts there. And then you come back and then you talk about it. And one of the things that we would do is map out the customer journey. You know, where are all the places that we interact with the customer? And what are their frustrations? One of the things I like to do is ask people, what bugs you about X? People will always tell you what bugs them. They'll talk forever about what bugs them. So that's one of the first questions. And you listen, you take it in, you watch them use your product. You don't know what you don't know. So that's how it starts. And then when you find problems that are worth fixing, that's when the development and the iteration begins. But it's important that it be a problem that they recognize as a problem, not just something that you think. So you want to understand, does it scale? Is this a one-off, or is this something that others experience as well? So I go back and forth between qualitative research and quantitative research to be able to see if it scales. Does that help?
It does. But I guess I'm curious as to how the exploratory process begins. Like, who identifies an opportunity to explore a particular sector or industry, whatever?
Yeah, so that depends on the company who does that activity. In my experience, that's marketing, that's product management, but it can be sales, customer service. The people who talk to the customer can be the first ones who bring it up. And if you track customer concerns, those kinds of things, that's a good place to start. You can also look at comments. I mean, today's social media world, what kind of things are people saying about us? Those kinds of things can be the thing that sparks your interest, gives you an idea of where to go and look. Anybody else? Well, thank you all for coming. I I hope you learned something and it was a little bit helpful, and please come by our booth. We'll be there all day. Be there all day. It's really good to meet you all. Thank you.